What's going on, everyone? Kelly Cavallero here, one half of Seven Air Media, and welcome to this day's edition of the Honky Tonk Highway, episode 5. Once again, we are back. Thank you all for joining us so far. Had some great guests. It's going to get even better as we go. Don't forget, if you haven't yet, follow, like, subscribe, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We go live on both every day, so those who don't want to watch it on Facebook can watch it on YouTube. I try to include everybody. Real quick, before we get to our special guest today, I want to give a huge shout out to my boy Ryan and McCoy Smokehouse in Charlotte. Will Craig just shared yesterday, and I know I shared it on my page. They partnered with Tito's Vodka, and they're going to give away over 500 free meals to families in Charlotte, North Carolina on Thursday. Huge shout out to Ryan and the boys. They always take care of me and the rest of the Line Dance crew who comes up and visits Will over at the Smokehouse. Great food as always. Just wanted to give them a huge shout out. That's awesome that what they're doing with everything going on in the world right now. So, Will, I know you're watching. Tell Ryan, awesome job. All right, without further ado, today's guest, multi-time award winner, UCWDC Hall of Fame member, choreographs all sorts of crazy stuff, pop, country, you name it, he likes it. Mr. Showcase himself, John, Mr. Pickles Robinson. You know I had to throw in the Mr. Pickles here. What's up, John? Thanks for joining me today.
Howdy. I figured since this was called the Honky Tonk Highway that I should use my southern accent, and I should probably wear this. What do you think?
Well, first of all, isn't it on backwards?
No, it's not, actually.
Oh, was it not? I'm sure Chris just loves it when you break out the costume. So for those who don't know so much about you, give us a little history on yourself real quick.
All righty. Well, I've been around a long time. I don't know how quick this can be. I started line dancing in 1993. I was living in Green Bay, Wisconsin. My partner at the time, had a friend who wanted to go to the local bar. It was called the Grizzly Rose, and it was patterned after the Grizzly Rose in Denver. Very, very, very cool bar. She did not want to go by herself, so she asked Sam to go with her, and he said, I don't like country music. I don't really want to go. At the time, I wasn't a big fan of country music either, but I said, hey, it's a bar. I'm 20-something. I'll go with you. I can sit and drink and watch. So that
Was your drink of choice back then still bourbon?
No, I actually liked, what did I like back then? Probably Long Island iced teas. That was my favorite. So 93 I started going out with her. She lasted 2 weeks. It was ladies' night. She was worried she was going to be attacked by all the guys. But as we all know, pretty much, I don't know about now, but back then, country bars were a pretty innocuous place. People went there to dance and socialize and didn't really go to pick up people. Not that didn't happen. But so she just didn't really enjoy it and didn't go any after the second week. And I kept going because I found it fascinating. But a year later, somebody or the instructors that were there were, well, considering I was in my 20s at the time, they were older. And they decided they were teaching too many nights a week and they wanted someone to take over one night. So that by this point, I was dancing with a coworker of mine who was also a friend. Her name is Diane. We were doing all the line dances, all the pad and partner dances, all the couples lessons. We did all of it and loved it. So they came and asked us if we would like to teach one of the nights. And I said, sure, never having done it before. Diane, being the sensible one, said, wait, we don't know anything about teaching. And I'm like, how hard can it be? You just put a microphone on and you talk. Right? So I quickly learned there was more to it than that. But anyway, so I started teaching a year later, started competing. Somebody said, you're really good. You should compete. About a year after that, I started competing on the UCWDC circuit. That's the United Country Western Dance Council, for people who don't know what that acronym stands for. And I didn't win at first. I usually placed in the top 4, top 3. But at the time, I had no specific dance training other than just going to the bar and dancing. So I have always worked at my craft, try to get better, try to learn. It's always a learning process. Being a dancer, being a choreographer, being an instructor, it's a continual learning process. So anyway, I started doing really well at the comps, and next thing I know, I was starting to get invited to teach at weekend events. And 1997, I think, by that point, Scott Blevins had come on the circuit. So I want to give a shout out to both Scott and Joe Thompson-Szymanski. They were my role models back then. So Scott came on the scene, did all these really cool dances. He brought his team. They would do their demos, like all dressed the same, looking awesome. It was very impressive to watch. And long story short, I decided that if some hick farm boy from Texas, because that's where he came from back there, with his mullet, his long hair, right? If he could come on the scene, and I mean this in a good way, if he could come on the scene and take it by storm and then start teaching and become this big star, I figured, why couldn't I try it and see what happens? So I had a really good job. I quit my job, decided to try this for a full-time career. And then one more shout out, Jamie Marshall. Back then, we were friends from the competition circuit. So she said, if you need to, you can come move to Louisville, Kentucky, live in my house. I'll help you get your career started. And basically, that's what happened. I moved to Colorado for a year. A lady hired me to come out there and teach. That didn't pan out so well. Called up Jamie one day and said, hey, guess what? And she said, when will you be here? So, yeah, moved to Louisville, and she helped me get started. She helped me get started traveling the circuit because at that time, email was like a brand new thing. So she set up an email address for me, which was Mr. Showcase at that time it was AOL.com, because I was the showcase champion at most of the events that I competed in. And for people who don't know what that means, back in those days we had 3 categories of comp. Classic, which is where everybody does the same line dance, and then you can add variations. Showcase is where they give you a track, everybody gets the song, but you choreograph your own routine to it. So everybody had a different routine. That was my favorite. I love that. But I also really enjoyed the Renegade division, which they didn't keep around. I wish they would have, because that was so much fun. And in the Renegade division, they would play like a medley of music, sometimes just 2 songs, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, and you would have to choreograph it on the fly.
Yeah, you got like what, an hour? You had like an hour or something before. They
well,
played it before the comp.
In the very beginning, no. In the very beginning, you never heard the music.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you would go on the floor, the songs would come on, and you had no idea what rhythms were going to be played. You just winged it. And it was so cool. I love that. I really loved it.
That's a really. I always loved watching the Renegades when we go to UCWDC events that had it. It was always the most interesting one to watch. And I know they still do the Classic and Showcase, because to graduate to Superstars, you have to get points in both still. That I do know.
It was a really fun time, and then because I started winning competitions and was making a name for myself on the UCWDC circuit, I started getting invited to more events. Jamie helped. She sent out crafted an email message for me. She's always been a good marketer, and basically she said, you need to promote yourself and say, hey, I've won all these titles, and I'm available to teach your event if you want to hire me. And that's how it started. I quit my job and started that full time, just outright quit. The first 2 years were really tricky, so I just want to let people know that it's probably not a good idea if you want to be a full-time dance instructor, just to quit your regular job cold turkey and go for it. But it actually worked out. It was I could you hear stories about people having no food to eat. That actually happened to me, but in the long run, it's been a blast. I've been doing this now full-time since basically 1999. And I love teaching. Say that again.
99 was a good year.
Yeah.
It was my first year of college.
So it's been, people say to me sometimes, do you get burned out? Do you not like it anymore? And that has never happened to me. First of all, I love dancing. That goes without saying, anybody who's ever watched me. I love dancing. I love teaching. There's nothing more rewarding to me than presenting material to a group of people who have no clue how to do it at the beginning of an hour. And then by the end, they're all like clapping and cheering and smiling and having a blast with it, because that means, you were able to convey that information to them in a way that made sense, and they're enjoying it. So I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So that's it in a nutshell. My whole life.
Someone in the comments, Chai Lee, just said, come over, I'll feed you. You probably don't eat that much anyway. Obviously, you've never been to a meal with John. Sit down with one meal with John on a Sunday night after an event. That will change your perspective, because we put away some food.
Yes, and I
that
can't
margaritas
wait to do it again. I'm missing that a lot.
I told Brian yesterday on the show, regardless of like the money, like making money doing my job, I actually just miss being on the road. I miss the people. I miss the events. I miss the traveling, probably the most. And that's like, I know this is like me. I can only imagine you're never home this much. I don't know who's going crazier, you or Chris more.
Well, Chris is working, so he doesn't really see me.
Hey.
But I'm getting rambunctious. So nobody believes me when I tell them this, but I'm an introvert. I've taken that damn personality test thing 4 times when I was really young. When I was going, I think the first time I did it was for it was for something. One of the job training things I did. They did the personality test. So mine came back, you want to be like a beachcomber, you want to go live in the woods. You don't like people at all. You just want to be away from everybody and enjoy nature, which is true. I do love nature. I'm not going to say whether I like people or not, because who knows how many people are going to see this. So anyway, I'm thinking this will be cool. I can, I like being by myself. I can handle that. I don't mind. But I'm getting really antsy, I guess, I don't know what word to use, but I feel like I said to Chris the other day, I said, I just need to go jump in the van and drive somewhere and then drive back home. Just to feel like I've gone somewhere. I mean, it's, I guess part of the joy of the experience too is hanging out with people that know and that I like. And even though we can do that sort of online now digitally,
it's not the same.
It's not the same. So I think I'm missing that energy, right? That's at a live event where there are physical bodies and people interacting and laughing and smiling and playing with each other. And I do miss that. One of the biggest things I miss is playing, because when you're at a dance event under the right circumstances, we all know that all of us can get really crazy and just silly and have a blast. And I miss that a lot.
Yeah, I definitely miss some of the nights staying up, DJing, partying with all y'all. That is for sure. This kind of leads into with you being home. One of the first questions I had. Someone wants to know what was your longest drive been? Because you drive everywhere with the Super J Mart, unless it's pretty much overseas. So you take the van or the truck with Chris, and what's the farthest you've ever had to drive to go from one event to the other?
Probably. Let me think. I think there was one trip not very long ago where I went from somewhere on the East Coast to somewhere on the West Coast. So I don't remember what the events were or what states I went to and from, but it was literally the East Coast to the West Coast. So it was about 4 days of driving, which, when you do it all the time, well, let me put a caveat on it. When I was younger, it did not bother me. I could drive for hours and hours and I'd be fine. Now I'm like, I got to get out of this vehicle. I've got to get out and walk around. I can't sit that long. I have little back problems. So if I sit too long, that irritates it. So I have to get up and walk around. But you get used to being in the vehicle. And now that Chris has a full-time job, I'm driving by myself almost everywhere. So that for me is like my decompression time, where I'm all by myself. I can listen to whatever music I want, not those same line dance songs you hear 98,000 times every weekend. Even though I love them, I get sick of hearing the same tracks over and over and over. So I can play the music I want. I can listen to podcasts. I write song lyrics. They just come to me. I can't help it. I've got my phone. Sometimes I just sing the song into my phone, so that's great. It's time to myself, so I'm kind of used to it. And that's part of the whole experience. Now, having said that, I think the most stressful trip was just recently when I did an event in Lubbock, Texas. Scooter Lee, Dancing for the Dream. I think this was last year. Yeah, it was. I did that, and then the very next day we had to be in Las Vegas for the Vegas Dance Explosion.
I remember that. Yes, that was this past year.
Yeah. So I flew Chris down to Lubbock so he could drive us to Vegas, because otherwise I would never have made it there in time to get set up. So that was probably one of the more stressful drives, not even the distance. It's just that we had to get there, and if he hadn't been there, we wouldn't have made it. So
yeah, Chris just chimed in a few seconds ago. He said your longest one was Boston Showdown to JP's spring event in San Diego.
That sounds right, because I know it was East Coast to West Coast.
Leave it to Chris to remember that. He would.
One of the cool things though about being able to drive everywhere is if there's time, I can stop whenever and wherever I want. So, when Chris and I drove together, people would always say to me, how can you stand being together 24 hours a day? Well, we get along really well for the most part. I mean, every now and then not, but for the most part, we get along very well and we like each other. So it was never really an issue traveling all the time with him. But it's just part of the experience. And I love being able to see something on the side of the road and go, hey, that looks interesting. We have time. Let's just stop and run in there and check it out. So,
Lisa just commented, what kind of podcast you like to listen to on your drives? Lisa, he doesn't listen to podcasts. He reads books.
Oh, and I forgot to say that. I read books too. Don't judge. Right. So this is true. You're probably all going, what? You read books while you're driving? No, let me clarify that. I don't read books when I'm driving in heavy traffic. I don't read books, in cities. I only read when I'm driving across Kansas or Colorado, typically. And yes, this is when I'm driving myself, not when Chris is driving. So,
for any of you law enforcement officers out there watching the show, Do not look for the minivan driving through middle of nowhere, Texas, or deserts. Just mind your own business. Even if it says "I love line dancing," just go drive by. You don't need to pay attention to what he's doing
I
behind the
actually,
wheel.
I actually told a policeman this story one time. He said, "Because all this driving you do, it's got to be hard to stay awake." I said, "It is." And the only thing, even podcasts, will put me to sleep. If I'm not doing something active, I will fall. I have this thing where I can fall asleep instantly. So people are like, "Play music," and I'm like, "That does not help." It could be I love music from the '80s. That's my favorite era of music. So I can be playing something that's really peppy and upbeat that I've always loved, and it usually gets me jumping around. If I'm sleepy, I will fall asleep. I can drink an entire bottle of Mountain Dew. If I'm sleepy, I will pass out. It doesn't matter. The only things that keep me awake, eating, because it is physical action, right?
Yes.
Usually I have like a bag of trail mix or something, or carrots or something where you have to eat one at a time, or chips or something. So it's amazing that I'm not hugely obese from all the eating I do on the road.
Well, as much
But
as you move at a dance event, you burn off a pretty good amount. So I can only imagine.
and Jeff, I'm answering Jeff Mullins. I'm trying to look out of the corner of my eye at the comments on my laptop over here, and he
These are
said, "Holy smoke, that seems dangerous!" Ha ha ha. So, and so I was telling a policeman this, and he goes, "You read while he's a line dancer too." He said, "You read while you drive?" I said, "Yes, it's the only thing that keeps me alert." And I said, "Sometimes it takes me like 20 minutes to read one sentence because I'm constantly looking in the side mirror and the rear mirror, to make sure no traffic's coming up on me." But keep in mind, I usually only read when I'm driving across Kansas or Colorado. There's nothing to hit.
That's
You're
how I
driving.
feel it through the first part of Georgia. I-75 is horrible. It's a state that shall not be named. I usually don't bring it up. Big Jim is probably going to yell at me because we do call it the state that shall not be named. It's like Voldemort. We don't say the name. Byron Roberson just said, use sunflower seeds. That's actually what I do. Kelly will be contested to this. I carry a jumbo bag of sunflower seeds in a big old cup with me at all times, pretty much, because I have to have that constant doing something. I either talk on the phone, because Kelly, when she's with me, sleeps. Especially, I don't think she's ever seen the state of South Carolina once. The minute we hit that state line, she doesn't wake up till we hit North Carolina. Speaking of Byron Roberson, better known as Country Soul, he's actually going to be on with us next week. So check that out, April 23rd, Thursday. We're going to talk about the whole line dancing scene out in Cali. So, got a couple questions sent in to me.
Absolutely.
So this should be, some of these are good. I'm going to definitely, some of them. What is the first dance you've ever wrote? The first line dance you ever wrote when you started choreographing?
I don't remember. But, well, what I do remember, the one that stands out in my head, it was to Brooks and Dunn's song, because I started dancing in the mid-'90s, and they were huge. I can't think of this. It's in my brain. I can hear the beat, but I can't think of the music. Anyway, Brooks and Dunn's song, and I made a completely symmetrical 96 count dance. So basically, it was 48 counts, and you did, everything repeated. So like each 8 was symmetrical. I can't think what the track was, but that was my first choreography. It was like probably one of the first ones. 96 counts. And I entered, at that time, the Fort Wayne Dance Team Showdown is what it was called. Now it's the Fort Wayne Dance for All that Jamie and Barney run. But back then, the Dance Team Showdown was one of the biggest events that I'd ever been to. So after I did a few choreography entries in some of the UCWDC events, I decided to take some of my dances there because they had a great choreography comp. And I believe the first year that I entered, I think it was the first year, I had 2 dances, and they took first and second place out of 100 and some entries. So that to me was just mind-boggling that I would, these 2 dances, because I wasn't, I didn't have a lot of experience doing choreography, but I'm very musical. I have always been my entire life. So, things in the music call out to me, rhythm structures, instrumentation, vocal nuances, that all runs through my head. So I think I had a good basis for doing choreography just innately. But it blew my mind to take first and second place out of 100 some entries. That was just nuts. And those were some of my first dances. Don't ask me what they are. I've got the sheet somewhere in a file and probably in my storage unit. But that was really cool. And so if anybody wants to ask me like, well, what's your favorite dance you've ever written or something like that, I don't really have one.
Yeah, that's on the list.
Well, one of my absolute favorite ones that I did was a recent one, and it was Summer Heat, which I wrote to the Luke Bryan song, Sunrise, Sunburn, Sunset, or Sunrise, whatever it is.
Yep.
I really liked the combinations I came up with to that song, and it feels good to me and my body when I dance it. So every time I taught it, I would say, I don't really care, not trying to be flippant, but I don't really care if you guys don't like it because I'm really pleased with the dance. There were dances that I wrote that were cool for the moment. One of the ones that people keep reminding me of every now and then, way back, I did I don't remember how many counts. It was long, never dance. It was 128 counts maybe. Very high energy, lots of high impact, high energy moves because that's the type of stuff I was really into. And that was a cool dance for the time back then in the late 90s, early 2000s. Hot Potato's always going to be a fun one because that was a huge hit around the world. Fresh, people still enjoy that today. I still love dancing it. People always want me to do Dance Dangerous.
Yeah, about to say.
It's pretty much my signature dance, and that's there's a story behind that, so I'm going to tell that really quick. So back in I don't remember what year, but Janet Jackson, Rhythm Nation, whenever that came out, I loved that CD and I loved that song, Rhythm Nation. So I started choreographing a dance to it. And I only did 32 counts. And then at that point I was living in Colorado, and a friend of mine who was also a dance instructor there, I said, I want to show you this new dance of mine and tell me what you think. And she said, it's too short. It needs to be longer. It feels like there should be more to it. So Dangerous was originally only the first 32 counts. None of this arm stuff was even in there. So I was watching television. There's a little sad note to this story. My mom died that year. So I was to get my mind off of it. I was watching a Janet Jackson marathon, video marathon, and Rhythm Nation came on. And when I saw them do the arm, this is taken right from the video, that whole little arm thing, that arm swap, right? I just stole it. And I tell her, I admit that. I'm like, I took this from the Janet Jackson Rhythm Nation video because I thought it was cool. But that wasn't in there originally. And I don't think if I had done the second half, I know if I hadn't done the second half of Dangerous, it would not have been as big as a hit as it ended up being. But part of that success I have to owe to Joe Thompson-Szymanski, because when I was living in Colorado, Scott Blevins asked me to go on a tour of the UK with him. And I couldn't do it. I was working 3 jobs just to pay my rent. And I said, I can't get the time off from work. I can't do it. And then the next year, Joe asked me to go on a tour of England with her, or tour of the UK with her. And at that point was when I had moved from Colorado to Louisville, Kentucky. So that's when I wasn't working.
Right.
And I had free time. So Joe took me with her to the UK, and she saw me do this dance, and she was like, that looks really cool. And for that, remember, I don't know who was around back then, but back then, those types of moves and dances were not common. Right, we didn't dance to. It was mostly country, very heavily skewed country, which is great. I love country, but I also like pop music and I like dance music and I like all kinds of music. So she was like, "I think I'm going to have you teach this." And I also did it to "That Girl's Been Spying on Me" by Billie Dean. There was a dance mix out to that track, so that was the country option. So we did that for the country option, and then we used Janet Jackson for the pop version. Anyway, she let me teach that on the tour one night, and people went berserk. Like, it was crazy because then I discovered I was back in the day when we didn't have downloading. I used to go to used CD stores a lot because I love my music. So I'd go in and I'd just grab a pile of CDs and they had listening stations. You could listen to whatever songs you wanted and then decide if you wanted to buy them. So I found this CD. It was Jimmy Ray. and it said, "Are you Jimmy Ray, the Xenomania Club Mix," or something like that. And I was like, what is that? So I put it on. I'm sitting on the stool in the CD store, and the song starts. Are you dangerous? Are you dangerous? And I'm going. I was like, oh, please let it work. Please let it fit. And so I'm sitting on my stool, and I jump off, and I start doing Dangerous in the CD store, and everyone's looking at me like I'm insane. But it fit beautifully, and that's what the dance ended up being a big hit to, was that Xenomania Club mix of Are You Jimmy Ray? So, yep. So that, I would have to say, that kind of gave my career a huge boost because it became like a worldwide sensation.
Nice. Big Jim says you were kind of like the Guyton back then.
Well, yeah. Well, to the extent that, I mean, Guyton's amazing. Guyton is. I've always said that I admire. I'm going to say it right here. Because I'm very proud to say that I think Guyton is an amazing instructor. When he choreographs that stuff, right? I don't feel comfortable doing a lot of it. It's not my thing. Like, I can do it. I can dance it. He said to me once, "John, you can do all this stuff." I said, "I know, but it doesn't feel comfortable to my body." You know how some people look really good doing hip hop and some people don't. Some people look really good doing a waltz and some people don't. I mean,
right.
we all have our genres that appeal to us more.
Yep.
I tend to like hoppy, jumpy, aroundy stuff and really, really pretty stuff, the two extremes. So, but when Guyton came on the scene, and some of the dances that he brought, first of all, I thought his choreography was just really cool. And I was a fan from the beginning. Of course, we all thought he looked like a freak at first. Didn't he have dreads at first, like blonde? I thought he had dreads.
He went to dreads shortly after. When he first came on, he had the
mohawk.
The Pebbles look, like Pebbles from Flintstone. He had the visor, and he had the hair that sprouted out like Pebbles.
But that's what I mean. We were all like, "Who the hell is this?" So anyway, then, but I will always say that I think he's an amazing instructor, because I remember one event. He brought this amazing, really cool dance with all this tutting and all these hand gestures, and I was like, no one's going to get that. Not that I didn't have faith in him and his choreography, but I was like, oh, they're not going to look good doing it. And I watched an entire ballroom of, don't be offended, y'all, old ladies. Right? I watched an entire ballroom of these older women learning this dance and looking really good by the end of it. When the music was on, they were all doing it. They looked awesome. They were doing the tutting. I'm just like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. So anyway, yeah. At the time that I did Dangerous, we didn't do hands. Nobody did hands. You didn't do arm and hand things, right? So that freaked people out. Some people didn't want to do it. They refused to do it. They're like, I'm not doing that because it's got hand motions in it. And I'm like, it's dancing. To me, it's all dancing. And if you look at it now, if you look at our scene now, the line dance scene, and all of the influences that we've brought into it, it's a whole different animal than what it used to be back in the 80s and the 90s. So I like the progression. I think it's cool that we've incorporated other kind of styles and formats and worked them into our line dance repertoire. That's really neat to me because it gives us different ways to express ourselves to music.
Yes, very. I definitely like how the incorporation of the different styles, still to this day, because you don't stick to one style at all. You go from country to pop to waltz to lyrical. You go from one to the other, pretty much from dance to dance. You don't usually stay.
Yeah, I don't know really where that comes from, other than the fact that I enjoy all different kinds of music. So, and if a song inspires me or motivates me to move my feet and my body a certain way, then I just can't help it. I'm going to have to choreograph to it. That's one of the things I love about what I do as well, is that you can have so many different types of people and so many different types of what's the word I want? I can't think of it. But people have different preferences, right?
Right.
So I love to dance with the country crowd. I love that. I started at a country bar. I will always love dancing with a country crowd. It's the energy's there. It's fun. They like to make noise. They like to stomp. They like to wiggle their butts around, and I love all that. I love teaching at country bars. That's one of my favorite things to do. Is favorite just a word? It is now. So, but I started at a country bar. So I really enjoy teaching at country bars and clubs. And I'm very appreciative of all the bars and clubs that invite me to come teach there. And it's really interesting to me because that's my home. That's where I came from.
Right.
And I learned to be an entertainer, sort of, from starting at a country bar. You not only have the people that are with you on the dance floor, but you have all the other people that are around the outside, drinking, talking, playing pool, throwing darts, whatever they're doing in the club. You should be entertaining the entire place.
Right.
So when I teach, that's my goal, is to entertain everybody. Even if you're not on the dance floor with me, I want you to be entertained. So you're not like, oh God, when's this going to be over? So we can hear the DJ play. So I love that, but I also love most of it. I mean, there are certain things that sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's not my thing. So that's great. I get a break then. I don't have to be constantly dancing on the floor. That gives me time to relax. But I love pretty stuff. I love really beautiful waltzes in nightclubs, lyrical stuff. One of Fred's dances, Witness. Oh my gosh, that is just so cool. When that made me cry when I learned that dance, and when I danced it, it made me cry. One of my favorite dances is Rhea Voss's Bittersweet Memory. Same thing, I can connect to it, and I get very emotional when I do that one. That is what I love about this whole scene, is that it can get us in our souls, right? So,
someone asked earlier, was there any one particular song or dance that you learned and heard when you were first starting out that kind of got you to want to stick around line dancing? Like, what was that one? Like, everyone usually has that aha moment where I'm really going to like this, because most times 9 out of 10 they go to their first lesson and half the time the song is probably not what they prefer. And that, especially like at a country bar, if you show up there with your friends, the first one might be, but that second or third one down the road, like, oh, I really like that song. I hear it on the radio all the time. Did you have one of those that just kind of got you hooked?
Well, remember, I'm old, so I don't really remember that far back. But what I do remember is when I started going to the Grizzly Rose, the instructors there taught a very limited repertoire of line dances. They kept it pretty easy, and I would venture to guess maybe between 16 and 24 dances was all that they taught, all the time. So some of those were really fun. Ski bumpus. I mean, back then, we would do it contra. It was enjoyable because you were contra. You were with your friends. But once I discovered the bigger world out there, outside of Green Bay, Wisconsin, and saw all these other dances that people were doing in other places, I was like, I want to do those. So when I became a teacher at the club, the very first dance that I taught was something I had seen in Milwaukee. We had gone to a club, a whole bunch of us from the club drove down to Milwaukee. It was like a bus or something. We all went down there, went to one of the big clubs, had a blast, but saw all these cool dances that we weren't doing back in Green Bay. So when I came home, I wanted to do one of them that I saw that looked like a blast, and it was Born to Boogie. So Born to Boogie by Hank Williams Jr. was the song, and I don't remember who choreographed the dance, but it was very high energy. Lots of hopping around, it was very high energy, and it really appealed to me. So that was the first dance I ever taught, was Born to Boogie. I'm going to finish the story by saying you should never teach a high energy, high impact dance for your very first one, because I knew nothing about breath control yet. I just put a microphone on, and I'm going, and kick, and rock, and give me a second. I could not breathe because it's all jumping and hopping, right? But I loved that dance. Love that dance. And then a dance that really, really, really caught my eye that I really still enjoy very much today was Scott Levin's Swing Time Boogie. So I learned that from him at one of the UCWDC weekends, I believe. And then I decided to bring it back to the club, well, not to the bar, because it wasn't a bar dance, but I wanted to offer it as a workshop and say, hey, for those of you that want something a little more challenging, it's a really cool dance. It's really fun. Also, I had a dance team then, and we all learned it. And when people saw the team doing it, they were all like, what is that? We want to learn that. So I had to do 3 Saturday workshops to teach that dance, because back then that was really hard for people.
Right.
But seeing Scott bring dances like that and Out of Line, which ended up being one of my competition dances, seeing him bring those dances onto the scene made me want to do it more as well, because it showed me there was more to line dancing than just 16 counts or 24 counts that you did to a really slow song.
Yeah, I think I actually put a video up of Swing Time Boogie up on our YouTube channel, because I believe Doug Miranda drug him and Simon Ward and
to do a demo.
Yeah, out at in one of the nights at Vegas during the show. It was caught him off guard. He wasn't expecting it. He didn't tell him ahead of time. He just said, "Hey Scott, come out here. I want you to do a dance." And he said Swing Time Boogie, and the look on Scott's face was like, "You want me to demo what dance?"
Yeah.
And Jackie Miranda was like, "Oh wow!" And she got out there, and Simon, I believe, I put that up as one of the throwbacks one day of them from Vegas from the show. It was a good one. It was very entertaining.
Yep, love that one.
Yeah, it was good.
What other questions do you have? Give me some more.
Who do you think is the most influential person in line dancing?
Ever?
Yeah, this one came from Carol Craven, World Line Dance Newsletter. Shout out to Carol for everything her and Stacy do. Yeah, she asked, who do you think is the most influential person in line dancing?
That's a really good question, Carol. I'm not really sure how to answer it, because different people have had different influence
on different types of different phases. At least that's where I got out of it.
And it's continuing to be that way as well. So back when I started, I'll start from when I began and up till now, kind of sort of do like a mini time capsule. So back then, Max Perry and Joe Thompson, she wasn't Szymanski yet, they were probably the 2 people that most people, back when I began, they were the 2 that most people were like, oh my God, they're stars, they're amazing, they're wonderful. And of course they are. But they were the peak at that time.
Right.
And then as time went on, we gained other people, like Scott came along. I think he was groundbreaking as far as, just getting us out of that zone of country line dances have to be, I don't know. He brought newness to it.
Right.
Everybody back then was like, who is that? Who are those people? And
I think of Marathon Happens. I think you really need to dress up like a Billy Ray Cyrus with the party in the back, Scott Blevins look, and show up and do one of your teaches. I think that would be hysterically funny for everybody.
Yeah, I could teach. What was his? Oh, he had some dance that we asked him to do at one of our JJ Jams, which was where we did all old classic dances.
Uh-huh.
Brown Gravy Boogie, that was it. Yep, I could do that one. But anyway, and then as time went on, other people came on the scene. Guyton was very revolutionary, very groundbreaking. And we continue to see that today with some of the younger choreographers coming in. Of course, Rachel is a star in her own right, and deservedly so. She came on the scene, and at first we could see, and she'll admit this, the influence of Joe Thompson, because she looked up to her and looked up to her as a mentor. Most of us have. And then she became just, huge on the circuit and an amazing person, an amazing choreographer. Now she put together the digital dance weekends for us, which major kudos to her and major gratitude and appreciation to her for arranging that. And now we have people like, I don't know, there's not very many good people out there right now on the scene. They're all kind of like Fred Whitehouse and Gary O'Reilly and all those people. Nobody really cares about them. So Shane McKeever, who's that? But I like that we're seeing, and Madison Glover, never heard of her. So, but I like that we're seeing more and more people coming from other countries as well. I'm a big fan of promoting American choreography and American choreographers. I feel sometimes we get overwhelmed with all the input from the other countries, but it's cool that we have people from France and Denmark and all over the place who we can rely on to bring us quality instruction and quality choreography. That keeps it fun and interesting because every one of us has our own style and our own approach. And one of the things that I coach people on when they say, "Hey, what should I do to break into, this industry like you? I want to be a traveling line dance instructor." And I say, "Are you crazy?" But I say, figure out who you are and then stay true to that. So we're all different, right? Some of us are really funny. Some of us are more serious. Some instructors teach like really, really hard stuff. Some prefer to do easier stuff. Some like the country aspect. Some like to do hip hop or we all have our sort of niche. My thing, what I try to do is to wherever I'm at, whether it's a club, a local lesson, like a Tuesday night class somewhere, a bar, one-day event, or a full-blown weekend, is to bring the type of material that I feel those customers want the most.
Right.
So I change it up. I have dances that I try to promote. And one of the weird things about me is I don't feel a need to always just promote my own choreography. I've been scolded about that by a couple of the top names. You should just teach your own stuff. And I go, but I don't want to. I don't feel, I'm happy if people want to learn my dances and spread them around and enjoy them. But the goal for me is not to push my own material. The goal for me is to push quality material that I feel people will run out to the floor to enjoy. So right. I love teaching things that maybe no one would ever know if I hadn't brought it to the circuit. And there's been a lot of them that I've brought, not that I'm bragging on myself, but there's been a lot of really cool dances that are still done that fill floors that I taught first. That wasn't my choreography because I like the dance. And if right. I like it, I want to be able to do it. So I want as many people to know it as possible. So that's one of my goals is to help, and then that will inspire future leaders and future innovators in our industry as well. If they go, "Hey, John Robinson taught my dances. Everybody's doing it. Play that sax." Michael Metzger.
Yes. I remember when you took that because Michael actually debuted that at Windy City one year. And then you took it on the road right after he debuted it. And that was a great song and great dance. I always say Madison Glover, when she came over here for Fun in the Sun, she did the same thing for Lonely Drum. Yeah. She was the first one to teach Lonely Drum over here in the States. And after she taught it at Fitz, it blew up like wildfire. It went everywhere. And it's still one of the most done dances pretty much at Absolutely. Every event, every weekend. Sometimes that's what it's needed, especially for newer choreographers and less known choreographers. If their stuff isn't being taught, it's never going to catch on, for sure. And if all it takes is one.
Yes, and I like a dance that I choreographed with a guy named Kelly. It's called Zero to Crazy.
Yes, we did do that, and you did take. You've taught a couple of mine. You've Be My Mind. You've taught a couple of the.
I love Be My Mind.
Yeah, and that actually transitions into one of the next questions that I got sent in for you was, what do you think is the biggest mistake new choreographers make? Like, what is the one thing that you see? And I know personally, I ask you all the time. You judge the USLDCC, you judge lots of choreography competitions. You judged at Fort Wayne. And I'm probably the biggest pain in the butt to judges because I go up and ask I want to know. That's the whole point. I want to know what you like, what you didn't like, what can I improve all the time. And you are one of the ones that definitely give tons of feedback. You have no problems talking and giving as much feedback. And you do a class about how to write a line dance from start to finish. You do it at a couple events a year. And I personally love it when you do that because for those who don't insight, no two choreographers write the same. Their process, I've co-written really with only three people, John Robinson, Trevor Thornton, and Chris Jockson. Let me tell you, none of them look at stuff the same. None of them.
Right.
So
it's true. And I love judging. I really enjoy that because not that I want to be critical, but what I love about it is I love to see how different people interpret a song. This goes back to my love of Showcase, right? I love to see what different people bring and what kind of nuances they pull out of a track, what they're hearing, how they're going to interpret that. So I guess it's challenging to answer your question. Well, because
that's what I'm here for.
But there's so many factors involved. First of all, I want to say there's no right or wrong choreography. Because we all hear things differently and we're going to interpret them differently.
Right.
However, there are good and not so good ways to present the choreography. So you might have what you think is a really cool idea, and because this is one of the things I tell the new choreographers all the time, because you wrote it, you compiled it, you put it together, you're going to be able to execute it and make it look good. However, if it has flaws, like if your body momentum is carrying you to the right and you suddenly change direction to go to the left without a transition, that's going to be awkward for social dancers to do, and it's a flaw in your dance. So I say learn as much as you can. Couple things that I do. Number one, if I feel like I'm just stuck and nothing's coming to me and I need some inspiration, I go on YouTube. I've coached people and said, here, these are the people I follow. I follow choreographers, not line dance choreographers, people that do all kinds of other choreography, because then it kind of stirs up, like, I'm like, oh, that was really cool what they did there. And then it gets my creative juices flowing again. So watch other types of styles, first of all, that you're not comfortable with or that you don't know. Learn what your rhythms are. Please don't bring me a waltz with hip hop moves in it, unless it's a funky waltz, right? But I see, I just from seeing, and even the dances that people send me dances all the time. Here's my new dance. Can you look at my step sheet? And I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't really have time to, now I do. But, and no one's sending me them now. But usually I don't have time to look at them all and then walk through them and see how they feel. And usually I coach people to do that too. That's my job. But anyway, learn what the rhythms are and what moves are appropriate. And then just take as many classes as you can. Go to different instructors, see how they teach, see how they put dances together, see what feels good on your body, and then try to figure out why that feels good. What are the reasons? Does it hit a cool tick in the music? Do those steps? Some dances they just flow. You don't have to think, right? Your body just wants to do that next move. Why is that? It's called good choreography. The choreographer put the moves together so well, and they fit the music so nicely. You don't have to think about it. That is genius when people can do that. So learn as much as you can, and then try. And also ask for feedback. You'll never grow if you don't ask for feedback. And there are people who I've spoken to in the comps who are like, no, I'm happy with my dance. I don't really care what you have to say. And I'm like, well, then don't ever expect to improve, because growth in any medium is only accomplished by opening yourself up to new experiences and trying new things and learning, always learning.
Yes, Big Jim quote, yes, that is my job as a competitor, Jim, is to get feedback. And I agree with John. Being a competitor, definitely get your feedback. You might not like it all the time, but for the most part, most of it is pretty helpful. And if you ever want to get John to actually look at your dances, just come up on Thursday when he's trying to set up his booth, bring a glass of bourbon or a margarita. He'll stop what he's doing and watch you dance. Trust me. I get yelled at all the time. Kelly, you're making me take too long to set up my booth.
And I actually like to give, and everyone's going to have a different take on it. So you may ask Rachel for her feedback, or you might ask Joey Warren for feedback, or whoever's on your judging panel, and we might give you different things to think about. Things that I'm going to notice the most, things that jump out to me, the musicality of it. Like, are you bringing out, I want to see, there's a break in the song, right? And it happens in the same spot every time, and you completely dance through it. That's going to bug me. right?
Yes.
Or
It
or
does.
there's like what I call a curve in the music. The music curves and changes or does something, but your dance is not mirroring that. It's not matching that. Those types of things are going to flow is also a big deal for me. Those are things that are going to stand on my mind. Other people might say, oh, hey, I saw this move and it just seemed a little weird, and maybe you could transition it this way to flow better or whatever. So everyone's going to give you valuable feedback if you're open to it.
Nice. I'm going to try to squeeze in two more questions. One of them I came up with, and it's a topic thing. You're one of the ones that really hasn't choreographed anything new on this hiatus. You've written one dance.
No, actually, it was before the hiatus. Actually, I have another dance. I do have one dance, and I'm not sure when I'm going to release it because I'm writing it with Rob Holly.
Yeah.
And we originally felt like the song needed 2 restarts, and then he came up with this radical idea that if we started the dance from the middle instead of the beginning, then the steps, because we wrote steps to some of the lyrics, then the steps would fit and we wouldn't need any restarts. And I was like, I like that idea, I like that concept, but now it's going to freak me out because I wrote certain patterns, to match certain things. So I'm like, I have to see how it feels. I might have to tweak a couple things. So other than that, I did All the Feels was my most recent dance, which
Right.
I taught in the first digital dance weekend.
Yep.
But I'm not feeling motivated to choreograph anything. I mean, I have to tell you guys, I'm very emotional. I'm very connected to other people and other people's sufferings or problems they're having, or just even in the world in general. So I've had like today, I told myself, I want to be in a good mood for this little interview. It's my first talk show. So I didn't look at any news. I just deliberately tried not to look at any news articles, and my phone pops up with alerts all the time from this news source and that news source and Apple News, and I'm like, nope, I'm not going to click on any of those things. So I have to be in the right frame of mind to do choreography.
Right.
Also, I have to hear something that strikes me as something that I want to dance to. So people are suggesting music to me all the time, and I go, That's, it's not tripping my trigger. I have to be like, ooh, yeah, I want to write something to that. So
I know we passed songs back 6 or 7 times since we wrote the first one together, and haven't really fell on one that we both fell in love with. And the one we did, it turned around, and the next day someone released one to it. So there was that. All right, yeah. So I'm going to end with the exact same question I've asked the last couple people. And you were having your event in Vegas with Chris, and you doing the event in Kansas City now. I
do. In fact, I'm quickly going to say, if everything is still, if all is good, in August, Dancing Up a Storm in Kansas City is August 6th through the 8th. Actually, 6th through the 9th, but the 9th we don't have any workshops or anything. So it is a very cool event because we have couples, pan and partner, and line dancing. We've got all 3. And this year, I'm very happy to say, if things work out, cross our fingers, that we'll all be able to do this by then. Darren Bailey and Bracken Ellis are going to be our 2 featured line dance instructors. And we also have Melissa Culbertson coming for couples. And then we've got all kinds of instructors that come back every year. I'd love for you to come try it out. So your question is, if money were no option, where would
it is.
Where would I host
Where would you host the
event?
event? And
first
5 instructors.
All right, really quick, New Zealand.
Nice.
I have always wanted to go to New Zealand my entire life because it just looks amazing, and I want to go there. So that would be my location. When it comes to instructors, I'm weird. When I host, and this is what I mean. When I host my events, I'm not looking for the people that everybody else is hiring. What I'm looking for are 2 things. Number 1, people that are fun and friendly, and people that play well together, number 2. So the people that I bring, and I like to expose my attendees to people they've never seen before. So like Chris and I brought over Cato Larson. Yeah. We brought over Willie Brown. I think we were the first people to hire Willie Brown in the U.S., and nobody knew who he was over here. And then they're all in love with him. right? So you're welcome, Willie White Sox. That's
that hashtag actually came up a little bit ago from Rachel Tribb. Hashtag Willie White Sox.
Yeah, but that's part of my goal as an event director is to try to bring you new experiences. So I can't choose 5 people because it would have to be whoever I was in the mood to hire that at that time. I will probably always have like what we call an A-lister, if you want to call them that. I would love to have like a Fred Whitehouse. We have Darren, hopefully, in August at Dancing Up a Storm. I always bring in like one of the big top names that everybody's woo, right? But then I'd like to have other people. Like there are tons, and I wanted to do this before we stop. I wanted to just give a shout out to all the local instructors everywhere, because without them, we wouldn't have all these dancers that are so excited to do what we do. And a lot of those local instructors, because I tour all the time and I teach at a lot of local classes, which gives me a very unique perspective, I think, on this whole industry. And there are some amazing local instructors who are witty and funny and very clear, great teachers, great energy. And I would rather, honestly, bring one of them in and have them, because it's new and exciting for them, and it's new and exciting for the people at the event. Like, who is this person, and why have I never seen this crazy, wonderful person before, right? But I'm all about sort of giving the underdog, if you will, or the unknown person a chance in the spotlight.
Very nice, very nice. Well, thank you, John, for coming on. It was great having you. Awesome time as always, spending time with you. As he
Not a problem, partner. Good to see you, Kelly.
Thanks everyone out there for joining us today. Don't forget, Friday we have a special at 2:00 Eastern. I'm putting on a 1-hour class lecture kind of on why your music and videos are getting blocked. I've been live streaming for over 6 years now, and I have a little bit of info talking to the people at BMI and ASCAP and CSAC and some copyright attorneys, and I'm going to share all the information I have for free to shed some light on the whole why y'all keep getting blocked. And then don't forget, tomorrow 5 p.m. come join us. We got event director extraordinaire, one half of JC Dance Productions. My boss, Jennifer Cameron, is going to be joining me. So this should be hysterical, fun. It's going to be a fun time. So once again, thank you, John, for coming on, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.